Welcome again. I'm Andrea Miller. I'm founding board member and the executive director of Center for Common Ground. And we are home to a multitude of campaigns. Reclaim Our Vote is the campaign that almost everybody is familiar with because the postcards, the phone banks, those are Reclaim Our Vote. Students for Voting Justice is our intern program. We had some very exciting, interesting information from my board member who runs Vote Equality, who also happens to be our private label bridge and our democracy centers, which now span from New York City down to Alabama. So, welcome, everybody. Gabe, next slide. Now, for those of you who are new to Center for Common Ground, we exist. We were founded to educate and empower underrepresented voters, think voters who look like me, in voter suppression states. And you know who you are: Georgia, Texas, Florida, Alabama, to engage in elections and advocate for their right to vote, and Arizona. Together, we can build a democracy that prioritizes the voices of all people. And as they say from Mississippi, all means all, y'all. Next slide. Now, in 2020, last presidential year, we had 44,000 volunteers. It was our first official presidential year. We did outreach to 14 million voters of color, 9.4 million by postcards, 2.9 million on text messages, and 1.7 million phone calls. All right. And we got a photograph of some huge piles of postcards. Next slide. People that are really artistic with postcards. This is a new year. This is 2024, and we have 85,000 volunteers. So our goal this year is to contact 18 million voters. We want to reach 12.5 million by postcard, 3.5 million by text, and 2.5 million by phone call. Some of our voters will get multiple touches. For the voters where we do not have a phone number, that postcard may be the only touch they get. Next slide. This is a really quick back of the envelope of the states where we're doing outreach and what those numbers look like. So Virginia, 865,000 Black voters. Georgia, actually, those Georgia numbers have gone up. It's now 2.5 million officially. North Carolina is now 1.5 million officially. Florida, we decided we were only doing women, and we decided the same thing in Texas. And in Alabama, we decided we're going to concentrate on Congressional District 2. Next slide. I know people go, these numbers are making us dizzy. So these are the areas where we're concentrating in the various states. So I didn't do South Carolina, so I'm going to start with them down near the bottom of the page. In South Carolina, we're doing Central South Carolina, Florence, Darlington, Chesterfield, Marlboro, Dillon, Marion, the PED region. In Georgia, we're going straight through the Georgia Black Belt. We're hitting a couple of the Atlanta counties, and then we're also hitting Congressional District 2. We have heard some very disturbing information in Georgia, and that information is the party is doing outreach in Atlanta, and they are currently planning to ignore 36 counties where more than 40% of the population is Black. Remember, in the southern states that were slave states, every one of them has a Black belt. That is where the plantations were. Well, a lot of the Black voters after the Civil War remained right where they were. They never left. And what's happening now is we are seeing a reverse migration. People who left the southern states as young people to get an education and get jobs are coming home to their ancestral lands. Cost of living is cheaper. In many instances, there may be family land. And right now, we are hearing they are being ignored. And we are hearing the same thing in North Carolina. Mecklenburg County, the county that currently has 242,000 registered Black voters, the plan seems to be not to have any major concentration on the Black voters in Mecklenburg, Wake, or Greensboro. So that is where we come in. We make sure those Black voters have the information they are going to need to vote. Alabama has a brand new majority minority congressional district, and that is CD2. Congressional District 2 stretches from Montgomery to Mobile. So if you've ever been to Alabama, you know CD 7 Terry Sewell's district goes through one part of the Black Belt. CD2 now goes through the southern part of the Black Belt. Next slide. Didn't know you were going to get a little southern geography lesson. We are thrilled and very pleased to announce that in partnership with Primary Wave and the James Brown Estate, we have a new postcard for 2024. And this new postcard is literally right on time because what this postcard is designed to do is James Brown was a Southern entertainer and civil rights icon. And with this postcard, this really potentially can speak to male voters and remind them of a guy that you thought was really cool, and we are still sampling his music today. He believed in voting. Next slide. Continuing with our theme as postcards as art, we have a brand new Vote Your Power postcard, and there is a sister card, Vote Your Future. Next slide. And in 2023, the Flower of Democracy was our new postcard. And I guarantee you, in the states where we work, there is not a board of elections in a county or statewide that does not know our old Vote Your Power postcards. Next slide. All right. I am going to bring up members of our postcard team to talk about the states that are live. Carrie, Nancy, who wants to grab this?
Well, you got all those states that are live, which is true. Alabama has already launched. So we have 8 states right now that people are writing postcards from. And this slide shows that you mail them at different times. The mailing date is determined by 2 things. One is, when does early voting start in that state? All the states but Alabama have early voting. Alabama doesn't have early voting. And then the second is, are we aware of any real serious problems with mail delays in that state? So that's what determines when we mail them. So if you haven't done postcarding and you want to, the way we set it up is through your regional organizer. Every zip code in the country has a regional organizer assigned to it. And we'll put a link in the chat so you can find that person. You email that organizer. I'm one of them, Carrie's one of them, Dee is one of them, and they will help you get set postcarding. You do need to use our postcards, our Reclaim Our Vote postcards, but if you're in a place where somebody already has a bunch of postcards, a lot of people in some of the areas have postcard packeters, and they might package up postcards and scripts and labels for you. But we do ask people to first watch the postcard video, which is on our website, read the guidelines. The next really important thing is stick to the script. We have had people make up their own script. They have made up their own election date, which is a mistake. So stick to the script, look at the sample postcard, and it says what you should say. Every county has its own, set of voter addresses. Every state has a separate script.
And thank you, Nancy. You may have heard from other people that writing postcards is ineffective. If you are sloppy, you use any picture, you don't have a good message, yes, that postcard could very well be ineffective. We have an entire team of people who literally labor over the scripts. There is another team of people who do the research. We provide voters with the phone number of their registrar, and our scripts go county by county. So that means, yes, there is someone who has verified that every phone number goes to someone in the elections department in that county. We are very, very careful about what we put on our scripts. We want to be respectful to many voters who, unfortunately, it sounds like they may get ignored again. These are our voters. Next slide. Yes, there are number geeks among us. Dee, I'm going to have you walk people through this slide. This is what we have done so far.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Andrea. So it is amazing. So the Too Long Didn't Read, we basically had even more addresses added to our workload because we were crushing it. We are now writing to 4 million addresses across all of our states, and we're half done already, even though we keep increasing the number of addresses. So in Florida, we're crushing it there. We're almost half done with that, to almost 1 million addresses. In Georgia, we actually added almost 500,000 addresses this past week because we were in danger of running out of Georgia addresses. Well, that was fixed. So we wrote an additional 73,000 this week. We're almost 60% done. In Texas, really nearing completion. We're up about 16,000 this week. Virginia, half done, up 25,000. North Carolina, we gotta keep pushing on North Carolina. We have a lot. We have almost 1 million assigned to writers right now. South Carolina making good progress, and Alabama had its first week. It's a little slow, but if you take a look at all the stuff that's going on in the other states, I think we can cut ourselves some slack for not making that a huge start. So total 50% of 4 million are assigned to writers. And we just keep gaining every day. We just got to keep pushing. We can reach all of these voters. And I believe we can. Anyway,
All right,
thanks for
and
your
I
hard work.
know we can. Thank you, Dee. I see these numbers and they so make me smile. Next slide. I think the next slide, the picture is going to make you smile. Now, not counted in those numbers, there are 150,000 postcards being shipped to Georgia for Georgia Team Unity for the Divine Nine. And they're still ordering postcards. The postcards will be in Georgia on Monday, and they will start having postcard parties at the sororities and the fraternities and on college campuses. Thank you, Team Unity Georgia. Thank you, Dr. Monica, who has worked for literally 3 years to get the groups in Georgia to stand up and write to their fellow Georgians and give them information about voting. And North Carolina, they are just getting started. This is their first year with Team Unity. They are looking very hard at Georgia, going, we want to grow into what Team Unity Georgia does. Carrie, I would love for you to talk about postcard parties.
All right. So postcard parties are a really fun way to get a bunch of postcards done at once together. And they have, you know, their joys and they also have their hazards. So I wanted to give you a little advice that if you're planning a postcard party or your synagogue or your church or any kind of congregation, please send out in advance the postcard video. And that's about an 8-ish minute long introduction to postcarding, but also to our mission as an organization. So it gives people a really nice feel of where we're coming from, and also goes over the most important rules when you're postcarding. It doesn't have all of them, but it has most of them. And we have printed literature also, of course. But we've found that when people get together in a group, they get so excited about writing that sometimes they just start to write without reading their instructions, and then things need correcting, and sometimes it falls on the host to do that. So we're thinking prevention, you know, an ounce of prevention, and just highly recommended that people send out the video, the link to the video, and also, you know, they may want to send out a page of guidelines too. So people arrive and they already are briefed, and you'll get more writing done that way.
I love it. And last night I joined a postcard party via Zoom in California, where Carrie was in attendance. And boy, oh boy, was that fun. All right, next slide. Phone banks. Gabe, take it away.
All right, phone banks are going very strong. We're currently calling 3 different states, calling Virginia, Georgia, and North Carolina. And we are running 2 official national guided phone banks a week on Tuesday and Saturday. Those are going into Virginia and Georgia, respectively. And there's also one every Thursday going into North Carolina. But we have a lot of other weekly events that are happening. If you see here, if you click on join a phone bank event, that will bring you to our Mobilize feed, and we have all of our Mobilize events where you can join if you're new to phone banking or if you just want to make calls with other people. Now, all this that I'm showing you in this slide is accessible on our phone bank webpage, which I just put in chat. You can click on that to find out more. We just switched out. We've been doing pledge to vote scripts because it's still been so far out from when early voting begins in both Georgia and North Carolina. Whereas we switched to get out the vote, where we're telling everyone their early voting locations and everything in Virginia. But we just switched North Carolina over today. We just switched it over to get out the vote a little early. So if you're interested in making get out the vote calls with a little bit more information, you can hop on the phones. And our survey results also just came back. In North Carolina, we were doing pledge to vote till now, which included just a survey where we're surveying communities on the ground of what issues are most important to them. And so I'll just read the top 3 results were affordable housing, economy, inflation, and affordable health care. That's 4, but economy and inflation were in one issue. So we've gotten some, and affordable housing had 75 people who had selected it. So these are significant enough numbers where we've gotten some messaging information about North Carolina, what issues are important to these communities. And so we're going to use that in our future phone banks and in our postcarding messages moving forward. And Georgia's still running strong. Every Saturday, we're making calls into Georgia. I think we've made around 8,000 calls so far, and it's going to jump up. And this is just since we added them a few weeks ago, and this is going to jump up pretty astronomically soon. So if you're interested in helping with the phone bank team, if you're interested in just making calls, you can make these calls on your own time. You don't need to join a phone bank event. Everything you need is in this slide. So the very first thing you find when you go to the phone bank page is right up here. To email me, you just click on the questions box. To train yourself, you click on the watch our training video. To find an event with other people, click on the join a phone bank event. And it's all right there. And let's see.
Thanks, Gabe.
Oh yeah. So should I talk about this, Andrea, or do you want to
Yes,
resume?
you should.
Okay, great. So this is a picture that shows the impact of our voicemails and our conversations that we've had. And I think the more significant of these 2 things are how impactful voicemails have been. And this was done on a set of 10,548 people who we left voicemails with in the Virginia 2021 general election. And then 59,000 people from the same list who we weren't able to contact because we weren't able to make enough calls. So it's a nice comparison. And of those 10,548 people we left voicemails with, there was a 6% bump in turnout. And that's raw percentage points. So which means that those voters were 16% more likely to vote than uncontacted voters. And then with people we had conversations with, that was, of course, a much higher turnout bump, 17.3%. But there are so many voicemails that our system leaves. And we're one of the few organizations that actually leaves voicemails in our phone bank calls. So I would encourage you to check that out. 6% is a huge difference when that's before the voters that we're even having conversations with. So yes, our phone banks do work and they are effective. We've got this slide each state has a separate phone number. So we've now introduced a new feature where you can sign up to receive returning calls from people. So we call voters all the time, and then some of them call back, and we're now able to reroute those callbacks to specific volunteers' phone numbers. So if you're interested in that, please get in touch with me. My email is gabriel@centerforcommonground.org. I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. And yeah, so we're totally in need of more volunteers as we ramp up, and just more phone bankers is always great, but we're going strong. We've got Virginia GOTV, as I mentioned, and North Carolina, which we just transitioned into GOTV. That's get out the vote. And then in Georgia, we're still calling people with information that they may have been redistricted, with messages to check their registration and provide other information. It's on the simpler side since it's a pledge to vote script. So if you're just starting out, you might want to try that first. And then that's going to transition pretty soon to get out the vote as we approach a month out from when early voting begins in Georgia.
One of the things that happened in Georgia when Georgia redistricted was the order that came from the legislature was very sloppy. It said Georgia needed to create a new majority minority district. It did not say it needed to be an additional one. So what the Georgia legislature did was they did let's move 80% of the Black voters in Georgia into new districts. And that's exactly what happened. And so these phone calls are very important because it's letting voters know you are going to want to check your registration because Georgia has doing a lot of tricky things and they're purging voters. And you're going to want to verify what district you're in because the people you used to vote for, you may now be voting for a completely different set of people. So we don't want people to go to the polls and then be shocked and surprised and going, I don't know who any of these people are. So we're working on that. All right, I'm going to, anything else you need to do on this, Gabe? This is our schedule.
Yeah, we have questions of when we would do Texas phone banks, if we're for sure doing them.
I have not set up to do Texas phone banks. If people are interested in calling Texas and we have enough interest, then yes, I will go ahead and invest the $15,000 necessary to make phone calls to Texas.
Cool. And here are some stats right now in Georgia. Oh, by the way, Georgia, we made over 1,200 calls in one day. I think this was either 1 or 2 Saturdays ago. So we're starting to get into those 2020 numbers again. So get ready. And we're starting every weekend, we're making like 1,500 to 2,000 calls total now. So it's really great. Thank you everyone who's been making calls with us.
All right, I love it. I love it. Okay, what do we have next? Canvassing. When we first started Center for Common Ground, all of our work, Free Democracy Centers, was what we call air support or remote. We made phone calls, then we sent postcards, then we texted. Now we have democracy centers in Virginia, in North Carolina, in South Carolina, in Alabama, and Georgia. And because we have partnerships with local groups on the ground, we are able to do canvassing. So next slide, Gabe. Our canvassing materials. are really designed now to educate voters and be something that younger voters like. This is Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. I've referenced them before. They have early voting in North Carolina. So we have a link and a QR code. This is where you can go and get all of the early voting locations in your state. On election day, they have to vote at their assigned precinct. This is the old version of the card. The new version of the card has a QR code and a link. This is where you can go to find your polling place. We want people to think about how are they going to get to their polling place. And then we want to remind people why they're voting. We really work to help voters get elections out of the prom king, prom queen thought of mind to be selfish. What do you want to get out of this election? What are you voting for? And then in virtually all of our states require either voter ID or voter ID. So we use the vote writer's card, and then that tells them what they need to vote. And in North Carolina, Mecklenburg County specifically, there are 34 offices on the ballot that people will be voting for. So again, we want to give voters the opportunity to see who are the people, the offices that are on the ballot. It lists everybody that's running. It gives their website, if they've got social media, all of their social media. And then very, very important in all of our voter oppression, suppression states, we're giving people a way, check the status of your voter registration. Make sure it's still active. Virginia and North Carolina both have same-day registration. Our other states do not. So people need to check by whatever the registration cutoff date is, and normally it's in the middle of October. And if they are having a problem, who can they contact? Yes, North Carolina's early voting is North Carolina's same-day registration is only during early voting. Virginia's same-day registration is early voting and on election day. We have our own version of the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. So Virginia voters are pretty well protected. The Virginia governor could only dump 6,500 people off the rolls. He claimed they were non-citizens. I know he was disappointed, but oh well. Next slide. And this is just the active vote screen, what voters can find out, elections, who's running for office, official, who is every official, elected official based on my address. I like to refer to this as from the White House to the outhouse, from the White House to who are your local city, county council folks and judges if you elect them. And or beyond the election, every bill that is in your state legislature. So this begins to teach people, now that you've put these people in office, what are they doing? Are they introducing bills that are going to make your life better? Or are they introducing bills that are going to make them richer? So you've got to start somewhere. This gives people an opportunity to start to see what's going on. And if there's a bill they like, how did your state senator and state representative vote on it? Did they vote the way you would have voted? Next slide. We also try to fix problems where the Board of Elections falls down on the job. In Virginia, it is impossible to find all the early voting locations in all 133 of Virginia counties very, very easily. So we took it upon ourselves. For every election, we produce the early voting list. It lists every county in Virginia, all the early voting offices in that county, and the dates and times that they are open, because they are not all open on the same dates, nor are they all open on the same time. So when we come in, again, everything is about empowering the voter. Next slide. We will again be using outreach circles for texting, and we are looking at utilizing outreach circle for canvassing. Texting for Virginia, that will be our first big texting cycle, will begin on September 15th. We will then text again on October 25th, letting people know that early voting is ending. And then we will be working on all the other states. Next slide. Oh, these things. We're going to go through these fairly quickly. We wanted you to get a sense of the states where we're working, what the population is. So when we look at this state, and this is Georgia, you can see that 34% of the registered voters in Georgia are Black. That is why Georgia is implementing voter suppression, voter oppression, voter cheating on steroids, because frankly, they are terrified. White voters in Georgia are basically now the minority. Next slide. I'm not going to make you look at all the slides. We'll go through them fairly quickly. North Carolina, and these maps show you where the Black voters are located. And you can see they're pretty well spread out throughout the state. In some areas where they're very, very dense, these tend to be the larger cities. Raleigh, Durham, Charlotte, Greensboro, etc. Next slide. You're going to get these slides, so you'll be able to study these on your own. Again, I'm a numbers geek, so periodically I like to break down where are we concentrating in a state, why are we concentrating in that area, because that is where the bulk of the Black voters are. And especially now that we know we are probably going to be the only outreach. Oh my goodness, my puppy is in here with Monster. Let me get Monster out in the hall. Next slide. Next slide. We're not even going to go through that. And South Carolina, again, South Carolina, we normally believe if we can find a state and that state is at least 20% voters of color, we can potentially win some elections in that state. So while most people never look at South Carolina as a state where there's any hope at all, we see potential and possibility in South Carolina. Next slide. And Virginia, Next slide. I live in Virginia. That's why we work in Virginia. Not totally true, but remember I mentioned in Alabama, we're working in Congressional District 2. Congressional District 2 is 52% African American. So this is a majority minority district. And you can see, as I mentioned, it starts in central Alabama and goes straight down to the southern tip of Alabama in Mobile. Again, cutting right through the heart of the Alabama Black Belt. Next slide. Texas. All right, now, Texas is only 14% Black. Sorry, Texas is only 8% Black. It's 29% Hispanic. We have Hispanic partners that are working in Texas, and they gave us specific areas where they would like us to concentrate on working with the Black voters. Next slide. Florida. Florida is another one of those interesting exercises in, we could do some things in Florida. Florida currently has a reproductive freedom amendment on the ballot. That's going to be of interest to women. And it also has a legalization of marijuana. That is going to be of interest to young people. When we look at Florida, as you can see, Florida is about 50-50. It's 50% of color. If those voters would turn out, Florida would look very different from how it looks now. So Florida is a plow the road state, and who knows, we might get lucky. Next slide. All right, we're done. A lot of slides. As I said, you're going to get those slides so you can look at them. So if you're interested in postcarding, centerforcommonground.org/postcarding. If you're interested in making phone calls, we love you. centerforcommonground.org/phone bank. We do not have any information on texting up. I promise you I will get that done by this evening. Not by this evening, what am I saying? By this weekend, I've already written a copy. I just have to get it on the website. All right. And are there questions? All right. I will love to take questions.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, Valencia.
Oh, hey.
Okay, so listen, I've been working for the Census Bureau full-time for about the last 15 years. What we know, 89% of the households in America do not have a landline. Of the remaining 11%, 50% are tied into an internet package. The people do not know the number. They may have a voicemail, but they don't answer that phone. So to me, that postcard thing is good. What do we also know? That a majority of the people who have a landline are 70 or older, but they vote.
Yes.
They vote. Okay, so the postcard thing is good and the landline thing is good, but that texting is where we find out that we contact the majority of, especially the young people, that they don't, that's all they're going to do. They're not going to answer the phone call. Some of the cell phones will type your information for them. They have that application and ability, but they almost answer the text right away. So those are some good things. And I just wanted to ask you, and some of the, for instance, Georgia has 169 counties.
Yes.
North Carolina has 100 counties.
Right.
So it says that some of those counties, I'm just going by census data, some of those counties have only 3,000 people. So when you say congressional district, is the congressional district tied into the county, or is it something entirely different?
A congressional district is tied into an area. They
Okay,
generally are supposed to try to encompass an entire county in a congressional district. In most states, there are some congressional districts where literally there's one or two counties that are split in half. Half the county is in District A, the other half is in District B. We are focused on where are our Black voters,
I got it.
because we're able to influence a statewide race, and in the states where there are state house and state senate races, we are going to influence those as well.
Well,
And
one
in
more thing.
Georgia, we really are influencing congressional races.
One more thing, that are all these states that you just mentioned, are those winner take all, or is it you get it?
They're
according-
all winner take
Oh,
all.
gosh,
Yes.
okay. Well, I'm in this all the way. I'm in DC. We vote, we get our mail-in ballots on 9:30, they said. And you know, what is it? We have what? I
Well,
forgot.
they
Hundreds
want
hundreds
you
of
to vote
thousands
in
of.
DC.
Yeah, we have hundreds of thousands of voters that are Democrats and only about 25,000 that are Republicans. So we vote early, get it out the way. I'm gonna get as many of my people to help you out. Let's do this.
Thank you. Yes, 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 yes.
Hi,
I love
Andrea.
that. Next question.
Hi, Andrea.
Hey, Richie.
I just want to say thank you, everyone, to support my aunt, and and everyone, please give her a round of applause because she's doing this, and she's doing this because we need to get all Democrats to get our votes heard and get all Black votes out there so we can get Kamala Harris voted, whatever. But yeah, thank you for your support for my aunt. And
All
by
right.
the way,
Well,
I
and
I
nothing,
said, huh?
nothing like the love of your nephew. Thank you, Richie.
Yeah, and I'm just sending you I sent you a note, but I have COVID, but I'm doing okay. I just want to say hi. I'm trying to support you, so keep up the good work.
Thank
Andrea.
you. Thank you. I saw a note in the chat. We are not working with Black PAC. That they're a political action committee. As a C3, we cannot work with a political action committee. I have known Cliff Albright since 2016. So yes, we work with Black Voters Matter. And we are kind of looking at maybe working together a little bit closer than we have in the past. Our Hispanic partners in North Carolina, in Mecklenburg, the Hispanic Civic Engagement Committee at the national level. One of our board members is president of Mi Familia Vota. And then through her, we have done work with Voto Latino. And we have also done work with some local Hispanic groups on the ground in Florida and in Texas. And right now, the names of those groups are just totally blasting right through my brain. Next question. All right, I am looking and looking and looking. All righty, yes, 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 yes. We're answering a lot of questions in the chat. All righty. Yes, okay, it's just this. All right. Our partner organization is National Women's Political Caucus of Virginia. They will be hosting on Sunday, and we will put it in your email. They will be hosting a series on Project 2025 and its impact on women. Now, because this is the Virginia branch, the very first one is going to be very, very Virginia focused. But we're thinking if people are in other states, this may give you ideas about how you can structure something similar in your state. So our very first one will be on Sunday, the 8th. And wow, I'm actually going to be able to give you a link. So this is the NWPC project 2025 and its impact on women and the Virginia economy. All right, there it is. So glad I remembered that. All right. Okie dokie. Team, are there other questions in the chat that you haven't answered or that I haven't answered?
I was going to ask you, I wanted to ask this anyway, Valencia again. So
Hey.
when they're doing the postcard, when they're doing the postcards, because we don't need to send postcards out here in DC. I don't
Right.
think. Okay.
You're right.
We're Republican. I mean, we are a Democrat all the way. Only 25,000 Republicans, 500,000 Democrats. So we don't do that. Now,
Okay.
so if I sign up to help you do the postcards, am I gonna, so if I'm writing it out for North Carolina, which I got people in Charlotte and Durham, or I'm writing it for Georgia, I got people in Mecklenburg and all that good stuff, DeKalb, all the DeCola and stuff like that. Am I gonna put, and then I'm gonna write it out, do exactly as you say, and then do I take it to somebody and then they box it and mail it to Georgia, and then they mail it out from Georgia, so it has the postmark of Georgia?
No. What we have found is the voters that we are writing to, and a lot of our voters are rural, they are just so happy that somebody actually bothered to contact them. They are not worried about where the postcard came from. We learned that with little older ladies in Alabama. They were like, child, I'm just so glad that somebody remembered we were down here.
Yeah, like I said, we noticed that some of the counties only have 3,000 people. And in Georgia and North Carolina, the census records also show that you have cities with only one resident. That's it, one. Unbelievable.
Well,
I don't know what party they're with, but only one person in the whole city. So I'm very
yes,
anxious to get
yes.
out with you. You know,
All
I
right,
can't wait.
all right.
I can't wait.
All right. Well, pick your state and then go to our website, look at postcarding. You're going to need to buy some of our postcards because we're very, very particular about the images that we send to our voters. And then we've got messages, we decorate them. They're absolutely beautiful. And believe me, people notice them, and we get enough information on them that people can go out and they can vote. I'm saying, well, we have voter protection work. We do not do ballot curing. We concentrate on GOTV, and we let organizations where that is their specialty, we allow them to do that. We literally will be working on getting out the vote until literally 5 p.m. on election day. So that is our superpower. Yes. We are looking at, we work with Faith United to Save Democracy, otherwise known as FUST. They are, or Fused. They are working to get ministers and lay ministers literally out at Black precincts where we know we are going to need to be concerned about the Klan showing up, people showing up with guns, and everything in between. We are also working with DJs at the polls so that, again, in many of the Black precincts where people might be waiting longer, we are trying to make it very entertaining so that people stay there and they'll wait to vote.
Can you, sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes, yes.
I'm just, can you tell me what's in these packets that we're picking up from our local postcard person? I'm just like kind of confused here.
All right, in your packet, you will have postcards, you will have the addresses, you will have the scripts. You will also have a label template, if not the labels, or the phone number of the registrar, the URL of the registrar's office. We produce those on labels so that we never have a voter going, was that a 1 or a 7 in that phone number? So for information that must be correct, we produce it and then give you a master that you can reproduce.
Would you like
That's
to
what's
take a,
in your packets.
would you like to take a look at a packet?
Sure, thank you.
Yes, Carrie.
Andrea, can you put me on? Let's see, I have to
That would
unmute
be
my video.
wonderful. Okay.
Now, not everybody everywhere makes them. Let's see, you can't see me, can you?
I
Yeah,
can
yeah, we
see
can.
a
Oh, you can?
little,
Oh, okay.
half a quarter of a page.
Okay, I'm not spotlit, but as long as you can see me. So just to say, not to raise your expectations too high, because not everybody everywhere makes packets for people. We in Sonoma County, California, we spoil people. So, and we have like a history, a culture of packet making. But in many places, you know, people buy postcards and they buy Avery labels, the right size, and that's all on the website. And then they get invited to the data room, or sometimes they get emailed the data that could be printed. And but when it's printed, this is what it looks like. Here are the guidelines. I like it as a cover sheet. You don't have to use plastic, but it's handy because you can see what's inside. This is the sample card document. So we added this to help people format it, and it's not cast in stone. You don't have to use these colors. You don't have to change colors, but a lot of people really enjoy getting a set of colored pens and changing colors. And here's the address, and that needs to be in black and allow an inch at the bottom. And then we have the official script document, which has got more information than you have on the sample, which is more of a visual thing. And this has background information about why we're working in this state, what our strategy is. And, you know, it's got a bunch of links so you can find anything you want. And it's got the script and instructions. And then we have voter addresses, which I will wave around so you don't see any of them.
Of course.
And then if you know, if you're getting the full service packet, it will have postcards, and it will maybe even have stamps if you're lucky. And these are what the labels look like that go on the postcard in the middle. Well, usually a little lower than the middle. And these actually print quite nicely on the templates. We can email the templates. They print, I'm sorry, they print on the Avery labels if they're the right size, and if you have the actual size setting on your printer and not shrink to fit or anything like that. So a lot of people do it DIY, and some people make a bunch of packets and distribute them, and it all works out in different areas of the country in different ways.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Our
Sure.
biggest packager is the Religious Action Center on Reform Judaism. National produces all their packets, and then they provide them to the congregants that request them. So yes. So we'll be happy when you check with your organizer. They can let you know, do they make packets, or are you on your own. All right, I think we have gotten most of the questions. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, so you do have to understand this is really, really late for me, and I am very tired. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening, and hopefully you got an opportunity to learn a little bit more about us. And I just saw an interesting question. What drives you? I was born into this movement. I'm originally from Chicago. Two of my uncles, my father's brothers, were aldermen in the Daily Machine, and my father was the baby brother. So I grew up in election counting rooms in Chicago on election evening, watching my uncles turn out the black vote, watching my dad go pick up voters and drive them to the polls. I am an eternal optimist, and I spent a number of years working in emergency management, and so I tend to go toward an emergency where everybody is running in the other direction. So right now, for Black voters in America, voting is an emergency in the South. So I am naturally drawn to help. And with that, I think I am going to say thank you all so very much for joining us and spending time with us this afternoon. And a huge thank you to my postcard team, to Gabe and John, for showing up and helping. And I really do have to grow because I just heard a huge crash downstairs.
Thank you.